Welcome back with a new math tutorial. Our lesson today about solving a system of inequality. Solving system of inequality, it means find the common shaded region. So in question number 1, solve the system of equation by graph. Y is greater than negative 2x plus 1 and y less than or equals x plus 3. So to solve the system of the inequality, step number 1, convert both of them to be an equation. So equation number 1, y equals negative 2x plus 1. And equation number 2 will be y equals x plus 3. To graph the two equations, we have two linear equations. It means we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. So slope number 1 will be equals negative 2. And y-intercept 1 equals 1. Now we have here the slope 2 equals 1. And y-intercept now will be equal 3. We said this equation written in the form y equals mx plus b. M will be the slope and b will be the y-intercept. Step number 2. You need to check if the line now will be solid line or dashed line. How we know that? If the sign is greater than or smaller than, then we have dotted line. But if the sign is greater than or equal, smaller than or equal, we have a solid line. So now for the first one, we have dotted line because it's greater than only. But for the second one, it will be solid line. Step number 3. Which part will be shaded? Which region will be shaded? So with an easy way, we will replace x and y with 0 and 0. So by substitution, add 0 and 0. So check for the first one. 0 is greater than negative 2 multiplied by 0 plus 1. If this inequality is right or wrong. Negative 2 times 0 equals 0, plus 1 equals 1. Is 0 is greater than 1? No. So the part which contains the point 0 and 0 will not be the right solution. So we'll shade the other part, the part which not included 0 and 0. Now for the inequality number 2. I will use for inequality number 2, so it will be 0. It is smaller than or equal 0 plus 3. So we have here, is 0, it is smaller than or equal 3? Yes. So we'll shade the part which contains the point 0 and 0. So now is graph. Line number 1 will start with the y-intercept. The y-intercept equals 1. And the slope is equal to negative 2. What is the meaning of negative 2? It means it's going down 2 and run 1. So we are going down 2 and run 1. And the line will be dotted line. So we'll graph the dotted line. Now if you draw the dotted line, we have two different regions. The first part, which contains the point 0 and 0, and the other one, which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. If you look at the inequality, we said the part which contains the point 0 and 0 is not one of the solutions. So we'll shade the other part. Now graphing line number 2. If you want to graph line number 2, we'll start with the y-intercept. Y-intercept is equal to 3. And the slope is equal to 1. It means 1 over 1. It means rise 1 and run 1. So we'll graph line number 2. We have a point here, so we can graph the line. The second line is a solid line. Now step number 3, which part will be shaded? If you look at the line, you have two different places. A part which contains the point 0 and 0, and a part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. We said 0 and 0 is satisfy the inequality. It means the solution will be at this part. So we'll shade the common part. Which part is common? We have four different regions. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You will find that the region number 1 is the common region. So the solution will be the common shaded part, which is this one. So to solve the inequality, step number 1, convert to be an equation. After converting to be an equation, find the slope and the y-intercept. Step number 2, check if the line will be dotted or solid line. If that's greater than or smaller than, will be dotted. If that's greater than or equal, smaller than or equal, will be solid line. Now, step number 3, check at the point 0 and 0. If you draw any line, you will have two different regions. The region which contains the point 0 and 0, and the region which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. Is 0 and 0 satisfy the relation? If that's yes, you also will shade the part which contains the point 0 and 0. If that's no, we will shade the part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. So for number 1, we have here, that's line number 1. We have here the solution, the part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. So we'll shade above the line. For line number 2, we'll shade the part which contains the point 0 and 0, which will be below the line. The common shaded part, which is the region number 1. So the solution now will be the common shaded part, which is the region number 1. In this problem, we have y is smaller than 3, and x plus 1 is greater than or equals 1. So step number 1, we need to convert to be an equation. So y is equal to 3. And the second one will be x plus y equals 1. Now we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. Because we have y is equal to 3, it's represented by a line parallel to x-axis, intersect y-axis at the point 3. So we have horizontal line. But for line number 2, we have the slope is equals. We said this equation written in the form ax plus by equals 1. So we can say that the slope is equals negative a over b. And the y-intercept will be equals c over b. So we can find the slope. Slope 2 now will be equals negative 1 over 1, which equals negative 1. And the y-intercept is equal 1 over 1, which equals 1. Now step number 2. We need to check if this line will be solid line or dotted line. Because it's smaller than or equal will be solid line. Second line, because it's greater than or equal, so it will be solid line. Now step number 3 at the point 0 and 0. Is 0, it is smaller than or equal 3? Yes. So the part which contains the point 0 and 0 will be the solution. Now step number 3 for the second one. Is 0 plus 0 is greater than or equal 1 by substitution at the inequality. So we have 0 plus 0 equals 0. Is 0 is greater than or equals 1? No. So the solution will be the part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. Now with the graphing the coordinates. If you graph the line number 1, we have a horizontal line parallel to x-axis and intersect y-axis at the point 3. So we have that the first line will be solid line. And the shaded part will be below the line. Now with the line number 2. For line number 2, the y-intercept equals 1. So we'll start from 1. And the slope is equals to negative 1. It's mean going down 1 and run 1. That will be the second point, so we can graph the line. Also, the second line will be solid line because we have greater than or equal. Now, which part will be shaded? We said with the part will be shaded, the part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0. So we'll shade above the line. So you will find that the common shaded part, which is this region, region number 1. So the solution will be the common shaded part, which is this one. So again, step number 1, convert the inequality to be an equation. Step number 2, if the line will be dotted or solid line. Step number 3, at the point 0 and 0. Is 0 and 0 satisfy the relation or not? If that satisfies the inequality, say yes. And the part which contains the point 0 and 0 will be the shaded part. If 0 and 0 doesn't satisfy the inequality, so we'll shade the part which doesn't contain the point 0 and 0.